Hello everybody again. This is a new video that's going to be a part of a series of cases that I'm going to show you where children, specifically young children, who were murdered by people that they know, and show you how often they are found on the emergency services call Moon line, which I'll show you all about, or the Saturn line. I have a couple of cases. The prior case that matches this one is Elizabeth Shelley, the little girl who was 5 years old and killed this year by her uncle, and her body was found on her moon line. Now, get rid of them. Okay, so this little boy is AJ Freund, Freund, or Andrew Freund. He was 5 years old, and I'm going to focus on two charts for Andrew and show you the dynamics of what a chart looks like when somebody's murdered by their own family members or somebody they know, because little AJ here was murdered by his own mother and father, and that was this year on the 15th of April. The two charts that I'm going to do are, the times are for the 15th of April 2019 at 3:17 a.m. because apparently by all accounts and through a confession, that's when he was actually murdered. And then I'm going to do a chart for the 18th of April, 9:04 a.m. when AJ's father called 911 himself to tell them that AJ was missing. So I'm going to focus on two charts. As I said, then I'll put them together into a playlist and it will form a series where you will start to see the pattern over and over again, that missing people and missing children, especially with what seems to be their moon and or Saturn, can be found with astrology. And I have so many examples of it, and this is just another one. So I'm going to go ahead and show you a couple of charts. First, I will show you the picture that you saw before. That is his father, who is 60 years of age, and his mother, who's 36 years of age. So there's a big age gap there. And she's a really bad junkie, and he was on drugs as well, but not as bad as her by all accounts. She is a monster. He's no better, but she's an absolute monster, this woman. Okay, there's a dog in the background, and I've got to apologise. It's not my dog. It's another dog down the street this time. It seems that like dogs just love interrupting my videos, so hopefully you can't hear them too well. All right, let's show you the charts. Okay, so 3:17 a.m. on the 15th of April is when the two monstrous parents confessed to actually killing AJ. Their story was that he accidentally soiled his pants. They got so angry that they put him in the shower for 20 minutes, freezing cold shower, then put him to bed with no clothes, no sheets on the mattress. Their house was absolutely disgusting, filthy squalor. He slept in squalor. Then apparently they claim that they went into his bedroom and he was just deceased at 3:17. I don't believe that's the way it went, but I do believe that 3:17 is an important time to do a chart for, because people don't just pick a time out of thin air. Something would have happened at that time. So what is it that we're looking at? First of all, Aquarius ascendant here. Now, the ascendant, as always, rules the victim. So the ascendant rules AJ in this matter. And the planet that rules over Aquarius is Saturn. So Saturn here represents AJ. And in this instance, it represents his physical body. And that's what Saturn represents as well. It's our physical self at death. So this represents him in death at this time. Now, over on the other side, opposite AJ, is the other person that's looking at him or wants to hurt him, so the suspect. Now, obviously you can read, so you can see what's going on here, but Leo is on the descendant, so the ruler of the open enemy is the sun, and that is the dad. And then the planet that we have in that house of open enemies is the moon. Well, it's not a planet, the moon is in there also, and that's his mother. Now, his mother also, I am stretching it a little, but, well, not really. She's Mercury as well, because the IC, the end of the matter there, is Gemini, and so that's ruled by Mercury. But the fourth house and the IC is a mother, and, well, it represents mothers in general, so we'll use Mercury as a backup for that horrible woman. So anyway, so that's what it is. We've got the father there, and that's sun. So the sun is in current rulership over that descendant area. The moon is also in Leo, so they were both very angry, really angry with him. Now, because Leo is on the descendant, now it's hard to say, because the moon is at 28 degrees and the sun is at 25 degrees, and they're trining each other. They're 120 degrees away from each other. So that's the mother and the father working together to achieve a goal, and the goal in this instance was to kill AJ. But because Leo is on the cusp, I actually think that it was his father that finally did kill him. And the other reason why I think that is because the sun is at 25 degrees of Aries, which is a male sign. It's a very angry, aggressive sign. The ruler of Aries is Mars, and that's in the fourth house of the home. So, and it's the sun's also conjunct Uranus, which is unexpected, sudden events. So Dad flipped his shit at him because of what he did, and Mum was involved as well. Mum was probably the corporal punishment person throughout his entire life, even more than his father. I believe they both did. So just to quickly go over that, it cut me off. We have the father who actually did the final killing. Now, at the end of the matter, or the womb and the tomb, that's called, so it's birth and death, is in Gemini. So it shows that the two people were responsible for his death, but primarily the father did kill him. And I believe that he killed him via the blow to the head, because the sun is disposed of to Mars, and Mars is the head, and blunt force trauma, and I think that's how AJ died. Actually, I'm pretty sure it was blunt force trauma. But that when they found him, he had head injuries. So that's this Mars connection with the Sun in Aries. The fact that Saturn and Pluto were really close together, I think that was nearly the closest that they got before Saturn started to go retrograde. Saturn at 20 degrees and Pluto at 23 degrees. This shows me, because it's also squaring the Sun, which was the father, is the father, and is making an inconjunct to the Moon, that the punishment with AJ was getting stricter and stricter and stricter, and unfortunately it was like the death was inevitable. And I can't believe it, but the DCFS just failed him so much, because so many people complained and knew that this was happening to him, but nobody did anything. The police had been to the house and they did nothing. So people should feel really bad, the people responsible for allowing him to stay in the house with these two monsters. Anyway, back to it. So what I think happened is possibly the whole scenario up to the shower, and then I think that, well, there's two scenarios really, because Uranus is in here next to the Sun. It's possible that he slipped over in the shower while he was being beaten or something like that and hit his head. But more than that, I would assume that shows us that he was quickly hit over the head out of rage, which is that Mars and the Aries there, and that's what killed him. So I don't believe he went to bed. There's nothing here saying he went to bed. He's ruled by Saturn, and the 12th house where this is residing is the basement in a house. It's not a bedroom. If it was over here in the 5th house, then yes, I would say he went to bed, but it's not. It's in the basement. So, and that's what they did. They put him in the basement for a couple of days until they could figure out what to do with him. And it clearly shows us that on his death chart. Okay, now we're going to have a look at the 9:04 a.m. chart on the 18th of April for when his father called 911 pretending that he didn't know where AJ was and that he'd gone missing. Now this is the chart. I'll just go down a bit so you can see. This is the 911 call from the father at 9:04 a.m. on the 18th. I'm going to zoom in a bit because I know you won't be able to see that properly. I'll go down. Alright, so what does this show us? Now, what we need to keep in mind is why we're looking at it. It's a 911 call. So what possessed him to call this day? What was he thinking about at the time? You know, just the phone call is the situation, not what happened to AJ, although we can see that. It's very much the phone call. So we can see the phone call is being made at this time because Gemini is on the ascendant, so that's the thing that's happening. But also it's the two people again. Beforehand we had it on in the 4th house. Now it's on the ascendant, so that's communication and talking to the police. The phone, this Gemini represents everything to do with that. Now, the natural ruler of communication and phones and phone calls is the 3rd house here, and that is Leo, which you'll remember was the father in the last chart. So we can see that the father made the phone call, which we know, but he's asking, where is my son? I've lost him, we don't know where he is. But that's not true as we know now. But if we'd have looked at this chart then, we would have known that he already knew that he was deceased because he killed him, because Saturn now, which represents little AJ, is now in the 8th house of death during this phone call. So the father, which is the sun up here, is making a square to this Saturn and Pluto. The father is aspecting the 8th house of death and AJ's body. So he knows exactly where AJ is at this time. So it's a shame that, well, it's a shame that hardly anybody uses criminal astrology, to be honest, but immediately after he was gone, he could have been found through this chart for the phone call, because I would initially ask the person who made the phone call, from the things that I've seen and shown you, which would have been the father, do you know where he is? Because he knew where he was at that time. So when we need to remember that when we look at charts like this or 911 calls, we're looking at the phone call itself. So we always want to look to that 3rd house. Now, Mercury is also representative of phone calls and everything. So Mercury, Gemini, and the 3rd house are all very closely related. Now, Mercury is in the 11th house of hopes and dreams and wishes. So he is hoping to God that the police are going to believe him. And that's the case here too, because the Sun and Uranus are in the 11th house of hopes and wishes too, and got ultimate goals. So his ultimate goal is to lie to the police. It didn't work, obviously, eventually. Now, also, just quickly, we have the mother here at 16 degrees of Libra, which is a really shitty detrimental position, making a square to the 8th house, Saturn, AJ, so that's not a good sign. But what I see here is that it's in the 5th house of partying and going out and having fun, and then it's quincunx Neptune, which is drugs, in the 10th house. So it's almost as if at the time they made the phone call, she was high as a kite off her face on drugs. So I'm going to cut to the chase because I was talking about those charts for so long. I think it's been about 15 minutes. Here is a very basic chart. Now, just to explain, up there is north, and that is 0 degrees of Aries, and then it goes all the way around the horoscope to back to Pisces and Aries again. Full 360-degree circle. Okay, so we'll zoom right in. I like to be very specific, really specific with my maps. So this is where the house was on Dole Avenue. Do a hybrid view. I'll go in a bit closer even. I think it's this one here. Now, the distance in this one, just go back out, pull it over here. The distance is, it's not going to work now. Great. Okay. 6.24 miles. Now, as close as I can get with the charts is that it's 2 degrees away from the IC, which is the end of the matter. Now, I can't say for sure that that's where I would have gone. I would have gone to the IC point, so I would have been somewhere down here looking rather than going a bit further. So there's still things that I'm learning with astrology and finding all the time. But okay, so we'll get there and learn those things. That's what studying is all about. So this is where he was found. There's Dean Street and Gale Drive, and it's the Hennon Conservation Area, like this whole area here. Now on that circle, the imaginary 360-degree circle, this way, which is also, I'm going to get this back up because this is interesting. As you can see, same direction, pointing over there. So it's pointing over there, just going back there, from there to there. So I knew from looking at it, it was going to be around about 20-something degrees of Capricorn, just because I've done it so many times. Now, I've made a mistake here and not spelled degrees properly. Okay, scribble maps can be hard to use sometimes. All right, so 288 degrees on the whole circle is 18 degrees of Capricorn. So if we go back to the time when he was killed, or the other chart, doesn't matter, they're both the same on this. But the time he was killed shows that, well, the distance outwards would be just around about here, so it's close. The 12th house cusp is very close to 18 degrees of Capricorn, and the 12th house is a shallow grave as well, so this also can represent that. AJ is Saturn, as I've always explained throughout each little bit of this video, and he is located at 20 degrees of Capricorn, which is 290 degrees in the circle. So if we go back to this, it's 288 degrees where he was found. 290 is a little bit further. So to just finish off, there's circle. We will go back out the whole circle. Oops, I'll get it back in a bit. Go to the road view. Push it over a bit there. And basically we can say that this is where AJ was found. So that is what's called the Saturn line. It matches exactly with the Saturn in the chart, which represents AJ or AJ's body. So once again, astrology and mapping is very, very accurate, slightly out, but it's 2 degrees is barely anything. Now, the distance outwards is a whole nother story. It works quite often with charts by just using the IC or the DC, so the angles, and turning them into miles, but it doesn't always work. So I'm going to work harder and harder at that to try and figure out many different ways to use miles. Maybe I'll start working in kilometres, which is the Australian distance. I haven't even tried really using kilometres. I don't know how that works, but I might give that a go. But just in closing, poor little AJ didn't deserve to die like that. He was buried in a shallow grave, They tried to cover him up a little bit. He was in some swampy water inside a plastic bag with duct tape on him and all these horrible things. And as I said before, it's just a part of something that happens, and it keeps happening more and more often, where parents or people that know children kill them. I can't fathom it for the life of me. I hope they stay in prison for the rest of their days. I would prefer the death sentence for people like that, to be honest, but I won't start with my opinions. Okay, well, there we go. AJ Freund was found virtually on his Saturn line, and that's what the chart said. So I think the father was responsible ultimately for killing him by hitting him over the head, but he was tortured throughout his whole life, and it was inevitable that it was going to happen. So I'm just glad that they were caught and they're in jail. Okay, thanks for watching, everybody, and the next one I do will be another one. I'm sorry about the graphic nature, but some of these things are graphic and they're horrible to hear, but they happen, and if we can figure out a way to stop things like this from happening or find somebody before they've been killed, then that's the most important thing to me. Okay, see you later. Bye.